Please take these moments to center down and listen to the words of Judson's land acknowledgement statement. Place is more than just a piece of land. It is a piece of who we are. For too long, we have associated this place where Judson Church sits with our European American roots, forgetting the people who called this place home for centuries before us. Minnesota Makoche, land where the waters reflect the sky, and specifically this part of the Twin Cities, is the ancestral home of the Dakota Wapekute people. It is home to their creation stories. It is where they hunted, fished, harvested, and cared for the land, raised families, celebrated life in community, and laid their loved ones to rest. We acknowledge that we, the people, our ancestors and governments, forcibly removed the Wapekute from their ancestral lands through relocation, warfare, execution, imprisonment in concentration camps, starvation, disease, and forced assimilation. Treaties were made and subsequently broken by us. We remember and lament the history of this land. Today we acknowledge and appreciate our Dakota, Anishinaabe, and other indigenous peoples as neighbors and fellow citizens. We commit to do better by our neighbors, to stand with them and to learn from them as we seek to create a community that sees the Creator's face in everything.
Thank you, Pam. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Judson Memorial Baptist Church. It's a big day. This is our 116th anniversary celebration. So, hey, let's hear it for it, right? I mean, hey, yeah. I love that everybody showed up thinking it was like school picture day. So, way to go, way to go. Thanks, everybody. So let me just give you a little, kind of a little quick picture about what's going to happen today. No pun intended, right, with the picture. But so this is what I'm calling our Mount Olivet service. So if you've ever been to Mount Olivet, right, they like to churn things out in about 50 minutes. So we're going to try to do a 50-minute service. I know, yeah, exactly. Everybody cross your fingers, which will probably mean an hour and 10, but we're going to try for 50. So why? We have some time constraints. You know, we have Al class starting. We have John's other commitment at Mindenkirchen. We have the photographer's own time commitment. So we've got to do it quickly. So what's going to happen is we are shooting, we are planning, we are hoping that the blessing is going to happen at 10:20. And right at about 10:15, you're going to start seeing some commotion because Ted Hall, the photographer, is going to be coming in at around 10:15. So when we're taking the offering, don't think that an outsider is coming and is trying to sneak away with the offering. No, Ted is coming and he's going to start setting up his, his umbrellas with lights and everything. You're going to have time then, if you want to get a cup of coffee, go ahead. If you need to go to the restroom, go ahead. You need to, like that last minute, just a quick little makeup, maybe a little bit more lipstick, whatever you need to do, to make it look really nice. And then we're all going to come up front and we're all going to, cram together as best as we can for the picture. So let's just go ahead and take a deep breath. We'll get it done. It'll all happen. It'll be beautiful and wonderful, and it'll hang on the wall, and people will be like, "Remember that year?" It'll be a good picture. Okay, so there we go. So again, welcome to Judson Memorial Baptist Church. A few things you need to know about what's going on. Other than that, hey, let's welcome Karen Thomas, our. It's going to be a wonderful and beautiful day when Karen's here, and it's just great for that. Things that are going on. A couple things that are happening. New members class will start this week. If you'd like to join, we're going to do the classes will be via Zoom, November 14th and November 28th. There'll be an email that'll go out tomorrow with all the links so you can join. The class is about an hour. It's I think it's probably one of the best things that we offer here at church. And it's free, kind of, because we do ask you to like make a donation at the end. But to take the class is free, right? So we should say that. So there's a new member class is starting. That'll be happening. And I need to tell you that there's two things that will be coming up during December that I want to make you aware of. One is that, remember a few weeks ago, I did a sermon kind of finding your true self, where I kind of expressed where I found my own, over the sabbatical I found my own true self. Well, we're going to have a class, an Advent class, where we're going to be looking at the writings of Thomas Merton, the accessible writings of Merton. Not everything he wrote was really good. The other part is there's a wonderful little 22-minute film that was made about finding your true self that is absolutely amazing. And we're going to look at some poetry, and that's going to be our Advent class. Well, I'm getting really some clicking. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Maybe we can incorporate that as the beat into the something. That'll be happening Mondays in Advent that you need to know about. And then if you haven't put it on your calendar already, please do so, our Christmas Eve celebration. So Polly Schramm came up with a wonderful alliteration for what's going to happen on Christmas Eve morning. Because I know some of you are maybe looking at that and thinking, Christmas Eve on a Sunday, we got to come to church twice. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking, right? But maybe not yet. But yes, exactly. Yeah, that's Fran, yeah. It's going to happen, but we are going to have 9:30. We're going to meet in Fellowship Hall, and it's called Bluegrass, Bagels, and Blessings. So we've got a world-class bluegrass band that's going to be coming doing Christmas carols and songs, and we're going to be singing along. We're going to be drinking coffee and eating bagels and just having a grand time. And that'll be downstairs for an hour, 9:30 on Christmas Eve. And then at 9 o'clock in the evening, we'll be upstairs for the big show, and we'll have our candles and lessons, and candles, and all those wonderful things that happen on Christmas Eve. So have those two things on your calendar. And you know what, Doug? I think I'm just going to go with the other mic from now on. Yeah. So there we go. So everyone, let's just go ahead and let's repeat them again. Our 4 core values. So has anybody got the core values tattoos yet? Somebody said they were getting all 4, tattooed on you, right? So let's just go through them, right? Hospitality, social justice, deep spirituality, joy. Good. Yeah, just keep saying those over and over again in your mind, and we'll get there. And here is our invitation. All right, brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors, from wherever you are, whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, right? Bring your hopes, bring your doubts, feed your soul. Let us continue in the worshiping of the living God, and may we stand and sing our gathering hymn found in your bulletin.
Hi, everyone. When I was asked to do this personal reflection, I was not told it was the one time I actually needed to do a personal reflection within the allotted number of minutes. So apologies if I wrecked Travis's plan. So my name is Susan Mason. My husband, Austin, and I are parents to 4 children. Finn, aged 15, Rosie, aged 12, and Charlie and Henry, aged 7. And we've been coming to Judson for about 9 years. I think I gave a personal reflection about 7 years ago. I'm also a professor at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. And it's an intense job, and throughout my professional life, I've struggled with that quote-unquote elusive quote-unquote work-life balance. Especially because I'm someone who loves home and hearth. I'm a Cancer, if that, resonates with you. And I could easily give my full-time self to just those things. Throughout COVID and beyond, I've been thinking a lot about the struggle so many of us face in trying to parent and care for our loved ones. So today I'd like to reflect on 3 kind of cultural narratives that I think make parenting specifically and caring for others more generally so difficult in our society, and one of the reasons that I value Judson and maybe religion more generally as a counterbalance to this. And I just apologize in advance for the nerdier than usual nature of this reflection. I'm an academic. So cultural narrative number 1. As a society, we seem to believe that children are a lifestyle choice. If you're interested in demography, you probably know that the US is experiencing a baby bust. Among highly educated professionals like myself, the fertility rate is well below replacement. When in 2016, Austin and I tried for a 3rd child and ended up having twins, we became an oddity amongst our peers, a family with more than 3 kids. I have been told that I am one of only a handful of female faculty members at the University of Minnesota who has 4 or more children. For context, there are 4,000 faculty members at the U. In January of this year, Pew released results of a poll of American parents. They found that only 20% believed that it was very or extremely important for their kids to get married or have children. So there's just a kind of move away from this idea of marriage and children as sort of these central things that are important in our lives. My college self, president of the Feminist Student Organization, would have seen this as good news. In the age of clear and present climate change, humans seem like a scourge on the planet. In 2022, women earned 82 cents for every dollar men earned, and almost all of this gap can be explained by income penalties women experience after they become mothers. Yet, as I've aged, I have started to feel that by focusing on the burdens of children, our modern capitalist society has forgotten how miraculous they are, and how vital child rearing is to our society. Several years ago, the economist Nancy Folbre wrote a series of columns on the economics of child rearing in the New York Times. She noted, there is a persistent tendency to frame decisions to rear children as mere consumption decisions, similar decisions to bring home puppies. If you want children, you should make them or adopt them and happily pay for the flow of psychic benefits you hope to receive. I estimate that we have spent well over $300,000 on childcare since the birth of our first child. If I had instead quit my paid job during my children's child care dependent years, I would have lost $1.8 million of income and benefits and still be on the hook for after school and summer care. So we have paid for the flow of psychic benefits, such as they are, that we've received from our children, though we can't claim we voiced on that happily. But Dr. Folbre goes on to say, missing from this emphasis on individual decision-making is any serious consideration of the impact of child rearing on the economy as a whole. Our economy would have to pay much more for workers if families weren't willing to pony up most of the time, money, and effort necessary to raise them, train them, and educate them. She offers an analogy. Imagine a world in which businesses could largely rely on highly customized battery-powered robots. What a boon it would be for businesses and for their consumers if some humans so loved the process of creating robots that they were willing to do so for free, happily lavishing their own resources on the production of ever more beautiful and skilled models. Cultural narrative number 2. Lifestyle choices are fine as long as you are keeping up with your work. The term workism was coined by Derek Thompson, and it's defined as the belief that employment is not only necessary for economic production, but should also be the centerpiece of one's identity and life purpose. In the Pew poll I mentioned earlier, where only 20% of parents thought marriage and children were very or extremely important, 88% of those parents rated financial success and professional happiness as being very or extremely important for their children. That is 4 times as many American parents hope their children have professional success as hope their children have their own families. In my profession, academia, workism is deeply embedded. We are supposed to be motivated by passion to pursue scientific discovery, doing whatever it takes to get this grant funded or that paper published. When I was pregnant with the twins, our school's associate dean for research told me, in an apparent attempt to be supportive, the nice thing about our job is that no one cares when you work. If you work at 2 a.m., that's totally fine. At the brink of a whole new level of motherhood and still pre-tenure, I almost started crying. I didn't want to work at 2 a.m. Was I supposed to? Although the question of work-life balance is discussed endlessly in my world, the emphasis is always on being more efficient so that one can do more work and more life in less time. This relentless focus on time efficiency was captured in a post in McSweeney's, a satirical website aimed at academics, titled, quote, "My fully optimized life allows me ample time to optimize yours," unquote. I'll just give you my favorite excerpt. Quote, "Before I leave for work, I make sure to pack my award-winning green smoothie. This recipe is designed to calm the spleen, balance chakras, prevent rabies, and make your skin glow. This jolt of nutrition keeps my mind off of food for at least 7 hours. I divide the week's smoothie ingredients into large mason jars ahead of time, which I can then take out of the refrigerator and blend with the Vitamix at a moment's notice. To make cleanup more efficient, I have 7 Vitamix blender pitchers, which I clean all at once on Sunday evenings. Best $1,200 I've ever spent. So much time saved." Unquote. This post is obviously in jest, but it captures the many, many sincere messages out there saying, if you can just manage your time right, you can be 100% devoted to your work and 100% devoted to your family and look great in the bargain. Cultural narrative number 3. We are individuals first and foremost. It is so easy to go through our life and our culture thinking we exist as individuals and that our relationships are secondary to our individual freedoms and accomplishments. This overemphasis on our individual identities belies the fact that, at core, we are fundamentally social and relational. As an epidemiologist who studies social determinants of health, I can tell you that humans are deeply unhappy and unhealthy when socially isolated. Lewis Thomas, the biologist and physician, noted in his book, The Lives of a Cell, quote, "We are, by all odds, the most social of all social animals, more interdependent, more attached to each other, more inseparable in our behavior than bees," unquote. Recently, I've also learned that not only do we need each other for happiness, we need each other to process information and make decisions. The philosopher Joseph Heath says, quote, "The reason is both reason is both decentralized and dispersed across multiple individuals. It is not possible to be rational all by yourself. Rationality is inherently a collective project." That is, we are utterly dependent on each other for survival, for happiness, even for thinking and understanding. Individual freedoms and expression are important, and yet I feel more and more like it is the collective that I'm missing in my life. I need that village to help me raise my children. I need to feel that it is a valuable use of my time to be that village for others. Judson, can we shift the narrative a little bit? Can we go out and help our world see that all children are our children, they're miracles, that we have a stake in their well-being? Can we honor those who work without pay to care for young and old and sick? Can we support and uphold those who build relationships in our community, even when it's not lucrative? I'm ready for a change and ready to work for it with you. Thank you. I still have another minute.
For the pastoral prayer, I have an experiment I'd like for you to do. We're not coming forward with the prayers this morning. Instead, I'd like for you to do me a favor, please. If you could still take the little slips of paper, and I'm going to give you about 30 seconds or so. Could you write down your prayer for Judson? And then what I'd like to do is take all these and just put them in the offering when the offering's taken up a little bit later in the service. And then what I'm going to do is take all of your prayer requests or your sentences or however you frame them, and we're going to write a collective prayer that we're going to use throughout this 116th year. So, does that sound okay? I got that? Okay, I'll give you, what's that?
Repeat the prompt.
Repeat the prompt, yes. What is your prayer for Judson? It's 116th year, what is your prayer for Judson? Continue working on it throughout the service. It's not a time stamp. You can have it done by the time the offering is taken. But now let's sing the Lord's Prayer together.
The scripture reading this morning is a familiar one, the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians plus the first verse of chapter 14. I don't know about some of you, but I memorized this at church camp when I was maybe about 12 years old, and I'm guessing some of you did too. I learned it then from the King James Version, but I'm reading today from the New Revised Standard Version. If I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part. Then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now, faith, hope, and love remain. These three, and the greatest of these is love. Pursue love and earnestly desire the spiritual gifts, especially that you may prophesy. Thus ends the reading.
Thank you, Jim and Karen, right? I could get up here and just kind of blabber on, and you all would think it was fantastic after that. Wonderful. Why don't I? Yeah, no. Yeah, one could hope, right? So it's 10:13. We're close to our thing. So are we going to get it done in time? What do you think? Yeah. Yeah. Bob Clegg has got the right answer with his head shaking no. So let's do a few things here real quick. So I wrote what I consider a wonderful sermon for you. Just a beautiful sermon about our 116th years and kind of what that means going forward and all of the wonderfulness that entails. But you know what? Sometimes other things happen. And if you are like me, I pay really close attention to the things that happen at 2 o'clock in the morning. Because sometimes in ancient cultures, that has always been the hour when God speaks the most. That's the witching hour. For some of us, it's the time we have to go to the bathroom. If you're of an age, right? But in church culture, that has always been the hour of lauds or matins. The one time that the church says no, in the middle of the night, it's time to wake up and pray because there's something significant about that hour. Now, scholars have said that actually, if you could somehow take away all of the light that we experience from electrification, our addiction to phones and TVs and screens, if we could remove that from ourselves, that we would all go back to a normal time of waking up at 2 a.m. That we would all kind of be awake at that time. And that's the time that throughout cultures, regardless of where you are on the planet, that 2 a.m. becomes a time of holy time. It's a little bit liminal, a little scary, the time where you kind of readjust yourself. So Friday night, I guess it technically would be Saturday morning, at 2 a.m., a sermon came to me. It was a list. It started as a list of 116 things about Judson Church. 30 of them came just like that in a dream. And then I went back to sleep. And they just kept rolling. We're technically probably going to go over 116, but who's counting? Because you know what? You don't need me to tell you a sermon about how crucial this year is in our existence. You know that you don't need me to tell you that this is a year that we're going to use all of the kind of federal funds that we got, that all nonprofits got during the pandemic. You don't need me to tell you that. You don't need me to tell you that, after we lose that, after that money is spent, we kind of have this raging deficit. You don't need me to tell you that it's worth worrying or anything like that. You don't need me to tell you how important it is that we, really kind of invest in evangelism and think about all these things. You don't need me to tell you any of that, right? So we're not going to do that. You don't need me to tell you that all the scholars say that the churches that are going to make it in the world are going to be relational churches. The churches that stress community more than anything else. Because you don't need to tell, I don't need to tell you any of that, here's my love letter to Judson Church. 116 things. If you want to do the call and response, you can. The line is simply, I love that. So try it. And then I'm going to fill them all in, okay? And I'll show you how we're going to get to 116. Because if you know me, there's a lot of dependent clauses in the sentences. But if you've ever listened to one of my sermons, you also know that there's lots of independent clauses that have nothing to do with what was just said. So let's just start off with, I love that we moved a pew to make room in the front less crowded. I don't want you to keep, because that'll take forever, right? It's just little chunks. I want you to do that. So, yeah, so just have that in your head that I love that. That we painted the pew blue, that we drilled holes in it so the water would run out, that we placed it in the playground, that parents sit in it while their kids talk, that kids sit in the pew while parents play on the playground, that kids sit in the pew and talk and play while their parents are glued to their phones. So right there, that was 9. Okay, so that's how we're going to get to 116. So go ahead and do it again. The stained glass. That one side was not cleaned and it's still a little orange, but I love that orange glow, and I ask that we never clean it. That the other side is cleaned and you can see the pastels that come through. That the front and back are vibrant. I love that we go through pots and pots of coffee. Good church coffee. I love that donut holes are now our unofficial church snack. I love that some of you try to eat your age in donut holes. That sometimes this is the clappingest church I've ever been a part of. That some mornings, I think that some of you wake up and think, I'm going to go to church and clap, and I'm going to laugh at everything the preacher says, even if it's not funny. We have boxes of tissues on every pew. And at some mornings, I can't look at certain people because I know they're crying. And if I look at them, I'll start crying too. I love that the prayers on Sunday keep getting deeper and deeper, the ones that you write. We brought in John Pentland, and that was as closest as thing that this church will ever have to of a revival. That we went through the core conversations values. Core value conversation. Well, that was a put my glasses on. You can repeat the 4 core values when asked. That we're going to make core value banners. That you keep asking, what's next about the core values? That Bruce Simpson this morning came up to me and said, hey, I wrote a song that's got the 4 core values in it. I love that we're allergic. This church is allergic to both Sunday evening and Wednesday evening church activities. I love that we have 2 libraries. The little free library out front, that we now have a campaign against with the Unitarians, because they have been putting, apparently, Unitarian tracts in our little free library. So I am now going to all the Unitarian little free libraries and putting in all the Joel Osteen books I can find. Take that, Unitarians. Yeah. I love that we have a library inside that's well groomed. And I love that sometimes people will take the books from my library upstairs, read them, and then forget where they got them and put them in the church library. And then when I go to look for them, I can't find them. And months later, I'll go and find it in the church library, forgetting that I've lost that one, and think to myself, well, that's really cool. My book's in here too. And then I started reading it and realized that somebody underlined the same sentence I underlined and said, well, that's a really good sentence. And then I flipped through and looked at my seals in the front of it that says property of G. Travis Norville. I love that more than you, apparently. You know, I love that some of our best work, I got a little ahead of myself there, sorry. Okay, let's go. Okay, I need you to do it again, yeah. That we're not afraid to try new things, even if they're scary. That we gave away the offering last week, the cash offering. And that some of you want to give the cash offering away every week. Although we took a chance on our budget this year, thinking that we're going to pay for what we want, not for what we have. I love that despite even with a deficit, we still support an orphanage for Burmese refugees in Thailand. That the director of that orphanage found her way to Judson Church and went to the diplomats in Rangoon, and the only thing that got them from Rangoon to the United States was a letter that we sent that had the Judson seal on it. That Eileen found that seal just 2 weeks prior to that. And that years ago someone could have thrown away the Judson seal and did not. Some of our best work is grief work. And that we help one another grieve. When people call for bars, they come in by the truckloads. And that there's always leftovers. And the leftovers get put in the freezer. And some days when I'm feeling peckish, You can fill in the sentence. I love that we have an analog church sign. We could have paid for a digital one, but we have an analog one. And that people actually read it. And that neighbors take pictures of our analog church signs. And that one neighbor who used to work for the PBS NewsHour has taken so many pictures of them, she now has an Instagram reel of them and shows them to her friends. I love that. I do too. And I love the PBS NewsHour, right? I mean, all this. Okay. We have personal reflections. And I love the one Susan Mason gave this morning. Hey, Ted. Ted, our photographer's here, everybody. Hey, Ted, we're almost through here, but we'll get through it in a minute, okay? Just give me some more. Yeah, Ted's good, okay. I love that Susan and Austin are our biggest evangelists. Even though they are pretty close to being probably practicing atheists. Yeah? I love that when they started coming here, they greeted me in the back, and I looked at them and thought, okay, if we can just get them to stay. But I didn't want to act too needy. And so I tried to play it cool, like, there's other churches in town, I can tell you where they are. And, but just kept saying, if they can just stay here long enough, right? So thank you. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I also love that anytime any of you do a personal reflection, because the way the light works, you can't see it, but I can. There's a literal glow around you. I love that Calvary Church started us 116 years ago. I love that Judson Road Nixon was its first pastor, that Walter Rauschenbusch came from Rochester, New York to Minneapolis to do his ordination sermon. I love that Justin Road Nixon was Rauschenbusch's first teaching assistant at what was then Rochester Theological Seminary. That Justin Road Nixon went from Judson Church to Rochester Seminary to be the Rauschenbusch professor. From then he became the pastor of Brick Presbyterian Church, and I love that he ended his life known as Mr. Presbyterian. I don't really love that, but still. Yeah. Let's go back to speaking of the atheists. I love that Judson Church at any one time has about a third of us, third here, who are atheists, agnostics, seekers. It keeps things interesting. A little bit of salt, a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of sugar. So keep it coming. Okay, let's have another one. We can present an idea, I can present an idea and no one will respond. But some of you will say no. And then the next morning we'll say, that's a pretty good idea. And then sometimes the idea reemerges from someone else a year later. And everyone will think it's a great idea. Especially when it's a guest speaker who says that idea. And I love that you all keep me humble. Because of those kind of things. Okay, next one. I love that music is so central to this community, but not everybody sings. And not everyone necessarily likes new hymns. That we have bands that write songs and perform them. And that people generally here start clapping, and within 2 bars are offbeat. It's just true. It's just true. I love it when Karen Thomas, our violinist on retainer, is here. And I love what Ellie Brazil has done for this choir. Yeah, I love the space of this church is like a TARDIS. I think it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. I love the stuff that people donate to Judson rather than throw it away. I love that some people think of Judson Church as the annex to their attic. I don't really love that. I just want to mention that, right? I love that there's a giant urinal downstairs that is ancient and massive. So much so that after 100 years, it has sunk into the floor. I love that we have a belfry, but I mourn that we don't have a bell. I love we have solar panels that generate at least 50% of our electricity on summer days. I love that Fran Hirsch has been working away behind things that nobody knows about, making this church beautiful. I love that animals occasionally work their way into this church and make it their home for a couple of weeks, sometimes months. Where are we at? Yeah, we're good. Okay. Okay, I need to have an interlude at this point. Let me say this first. I love that a church like this, our size is perfect. We can know each other, and we can know each other's stories. But there's a burden to that as well. And here's what it is. I give all my energy to this church. The result of that is, I have no friends. The result of that is, when Cynic and I were in West Virginia, we had an imaginative conversation. Years down the road. Hey, Dad, when you're living in West Virginia, retired, or later on in life, and you go back to Minneapolis, who will you visit that's not from Judson? Yeah, there were no names. There were no names. So here's my request for you. I ask that you, when you pray for your pastor, you pray for a friend or two to emerge. That's all. And I love that I can confess that and no one rolls their eyes. And I love that I can confess that and no one tries to immediately fix it. And I love that right now that some of you are thinking, I could probably fix the pastor up with this person. Or we could play friend matchmaker, because I know that's what you're thinking, but don't do it. I love that you let me repeat myself, and that you act like you never heard it for the first time. I like that even if you didn't hear it for the first time, and what we say is repeated, it really is the first time, because you didn't hear it the first time. And I love that you tell me the same stories over and over again. And I love that I can create expressions that make you think that this is the first time I've ever heard this story. And I love that sometimes you repeat yourself knowing that I have no idea what you're talking about. And I generally think this is the first time I've ever heard it, even though it was probably the 5th or 6th time you've told it to me. And I love that we both just carry on. I love that we are not perfectionists, because if we were, this would be a very frustrating place. Okay, we're almost there. I love that people have no idea who we are, what we do, or where we are. Because it means growth is possible. I love that for years Marie walked by this church and saw our rainbow banners and thought that we were just naive Baptists who liked color. I love that I can baptize an infant and the deacons don't threaten to fire me. I love that I can offer a scotch and wine tasting and they sell out. I love that we can proclaim an inclusive love and people may protest our Christmas Eve services and graffiti our church, but no one threatens to sue the pastor or sue the church. Trust me, it's happened. I love that our neighbors from this street were the first ones out there cleaning the graffiti off. I love that people show up. How do I say this? Let's say this. I love that more people call Judson their spiritual home than we'll ever know. I love that here community matters more than doctrine. That compassion is our love language. And if no one is real, most of us are not from here. We're all from somewhere else, most of us. But this is where we choose to make home. I still love that people think that we're the Judson Church in Greenwich Village, New York City. And I still love that people sometimes make donations to that church. I
I love when I'm at my wit's end, that I can come and sit in a pew. I can let the light shine on me, and I can remember those who aren't here. I can hear their laughter. I can feel their hugs. I can smell the cookies that they just baked. And I can take some deep breaths and go home with a light heart. I love that as a community, we choose to follow that imperative in Paul's gospel, is what I consider it. That despite the lack of success, that despite the lack of recognition, that we as a community choose to pursue love. All right, I got one last thing. I have a Sweet 16 list. That was 123 things right there, by the way. Who's counting? A Sweet 16 list. This is my year-long wish list for this year. I'm only going to do this because last year when I did this at the annual meeting kind of time, I realized this summer that all 10 of those things came to fruition. So let's see if it happens again. A theologian in residence, we already have him. He's called Ridgway Addison. He just needs to come here and join and start working with us on Howard Thurman. I wish that we still change this alcove over here into a meditation center, a chapel, a prayer studio. I wish we need some coffee pot makers that are hooked up to the water line. I mean, it's great that Thea is as tall as she is and she doesn't have to use the stool for the water, but we need to know. We need tables and chairs for coffee in the back. Let's take another pew out and just have some fun back there. How about a tea station? Because I know there's people that like tea. And there was one time a young couple came and they asked, did we have decaf coffee? It nearly broke my heart, but let's have some decaf coffee. I need everyone to think of themselves as greeters at this church. Because I've watched people, I see it up here, I watch people come in and no one says hello to them. So don't think that other people are going to do it. Just do it for you. If anybody says, you know what, that church was too friendly, hey, what? I'll take that chance, right? I want like a number 8. I'd like a folk choir to introduce new hymns. Spring and fall revivals. Back to John Pentland. We're not going to scare anybody with this. Okay, ready for this? 16 new members this year. Yeah, 16. Youth group guru. We've talked with Carolyn about this. We need the guru. I'd like to bring back time with children, but I don't know how to do it. How about 2 new choir members, 15 more bike parking, and number 16 for my wish list, that we are eating more together. All right, there we go. Number 16, Judson. Is this what we're going to do now? We got one more hymn to sing. This is our offertory hymn. We're going to take up the offering. Ted, if you want to start setting up, we can get ready. And, so whatever you got to do to get yourself ready for the picture, let's do it, folks. Okay? Yeah, wow, we went over. Yeah. I really tried. was Bruce Elliott, not Bruce Simpson, who wrote that. This one's to Bruce. Thank you much. Number 2, right after the blessing, let's let Ted get set up and everyone start making their way. The donut holes are out, but you cannot have any until after the picture. All right? Yes. And number 3, the blessing is simply this. From the Apostle Paul to you. Pursue love. Amen.
I love that.